All right. Happy Monday. Just wanted to check in with all of you and I hope that you're having a happy Monday. So, I wanted to chime in with some thoughts and awarenesses about healing, and particularly healing as an empath. Um, this post was really inspired by a room I was in last night on Clubhouse around um, adverse childhood experiences. And lately, many of my clients um, are amazing, phenomenal, accomplished, successful women who have traversed many spaces, um, particularly traversing those spaces as women of color, traversing spaces of academia, and traversing spaces in the entrepreneurship field. So when you compound all of that with the inner child who is still wounded and hasn't fully healed, when you compound that by so many empaths, um, let me bring that track back. When we talk about being empathic, I do want to center that it is a person that can feel the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of another person inside their body. And so many empaths have experienced, not all, but many have experienced traumatic childhoods. And when one experiences a traumatic childhood, it can create obviously fight or flight, freeze or fawn. It can also create a need or an instinct to be intuitive so that you can navigate your space, to have a heightened sense of awareness, to want to either be a people pleaser or a negotiator or a diplomat, to want to resolve conflict, uh, and feel an obligation to want to heal, to want to save, to want to protect, right? So, moving fast forward into adulthood, if those areas have not been healed, they will manifest in your life, right? And a subtle but powerful trauma response is not wanting to receive help, thinking that not only can you do it all, you can't trust anyone else to come in and support you. And I will say, in many of my own coaching containers, right? The ones that I have participated in, I would say coaching has probably um, been one of the best things that has ever happened to me. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some coaches out here that will use scare tactics like limited thinking or you have an energetic block. When you understand your empathic nature, you understand that in a healed space, in a whole space, you can not only create an impact, but you can create an impact with ethics, you can create an impact with sustainability and profitability, and that it's not your job. You no longer take that on as a response that it's your job to save, but you show up in service. And so many of the women that I work with are still navigating these spaces, and it's just important as empaths that all of the love that we want to give to other people, we also hold on to some of that love, not withhold, but hold on some of that nourishment so that we can nourish ourselves because we have such big work to do in the world. And I don't have to tell you that from Gaza to Ethiopia to Colombia to Venezuela and right here on these United States. There has been an edict, I believe, that is calling for deep empathic and feminine leadership to restore the divine feminine, to restore not just balance but harmony, to bring equity um, and to bring communal leadership to end any regime of tyranny and violence, to understand that not only are we beholden and connected one to each other, but we are also connected to the earth itself. And that this vast universe has enough resources for everyone. And so we have to shift our consciousness out of scarcity and fear and allow a different modality, a different mode of operation to come in. And the only way to do that is for us to individually do our work and do our healing, but then also make it very clear about where, not only where we stand, but the way in which peace and justice are going to prevail. So then that way it doesn't have to come on the back end because justice typically is a verdict. But if we have equity in the inception, then everyone wins. And I just wanted to stop by and share just some revelations that I'm getting because I've also been in some clubhouse rooms around the divine feminine and feminine leadership and what that looks like and that healing that comes from the feminine. That's the intuition, that's the wisdom, that's the creativity, right? That's presence. So many times as empaths, and particularly as women, we're told we're too emotional. Take your emotions out of it. And I would say that our emotions, when we look at them objectively, our emotions are indicators where where things are in our lives, and our emotions are our indicators of who is missing from the conversation because empaths have a different type of awareness. You can see what's unseen and you can hear what's not being said. So when we talk about not just inclusivity, we have to talk about the spaces and who is not present when decisions are being made. And if we notice that there are certain individuals and identities that are not present, then that means the conversation can't even be had. And so we need people with the right ethics and the moral compass that can say, you know what, this conversation can't even be had because the right people are not in the room. And we need to take into consideration how this impacts the whole, not just certain individuals, because there's an opportunity for mutual benefit. There's an opportunity for um, things to be done. And I'm talking about it in every sector of our society differently when we have empathic leadership, when we have people who are connected back to source, when we have people who understand the um, the interconnectedness that we have to each other. These are the gifts of empathic leadership. Those who have um, the gift of dreams, right? Because anything that we see in this right now reality, even this computer or phone or whatever tool or medium that you're listening to this come through, that was someone's dream initially that got birthed into consciousness. And then a blueprint was mocked up and developed, and it became a reality because someone knew that there was a need. Someone knew that through innovation, that these tools that we now see in our hands, everything that we see in this consciousness and this reality was at one point a dream. And so we know how our sister Harriet Tubman used dreams to navigate the Underground Railroad. They wanted to call her a narcoleptic, but that dream state allowed her to navigate her footing and led thousands on the pathway to freedom. So, my dear empath, how can you not just lead yourself to a pathway of freedom, but using your empathic gifts so that you can lead others? And that starts with that journey inward because it's never from the external, right? It's not what we see out here, it's what we see on the inside. And so, like I was sharing with you, with so many of my clients who are, while on paper, yes, successful, are still doing that inner work of healing. And that's really where the excavation is. It's with the inside. And um, shifting out of the consciousness of separation because we are not separate. There is no separation. We are all inextricably connected. And these are the words of Dr. King, that our fates are inextricably connected. So I just wanted to pop in and share with you just some of the insights and revelations that have been coming up for me, and also invite you into, I have one spot available to work with me one on one. I do them once a quarter, where I invite people into a VIP day, which is a highly immersive day. It's about 4.5 hours of working together so that we can work through these issues as they show up. And as we work through these issues as we show up, we discover and amplify your empathic gifts. There are 17 different empaths. If you head over to BrehendaWilliams.com, there's a free gift there. Click the button that says free gift. It's Pass the Water if you go onto my website at BrehendaWilliams.com. And in fact, let me drop this here for you. It's here for you to make it easy. So you can grab this free toolkit that not only helps you to identify if you're empathic, but the 17 types and which ones resonates most with you. And when you understand who you are, you operate a lot differently in the world. And so, like I said, in this VIP day container, I help female identified empathic business leaders look at those things that are getting in the way of their flourishing. So, things, for example, um, I was working with a client, and intuitively she knew that working one on one wasn't for her, it was a group program. And so sometimes we have so much noise in the external world that are telling us what we should do and how we should operate. But really, group programming is really where she felt led. And again, we're breaking up with cultural agreements. I have so many clients that, as we shift about into what it is that we can ask, that we deserve goodness, that we deserve love, that there's nothing in our being except for the stories that we tell ourselves that we don't deserve. And like I said, when we live in the type of society in which we live that is run off white male patriarchy and white supremacist delusion, it will have you thinking that you are inferior and that even your right to life is questionable. No, we're not doing that. Everyone has a right to a dignified life. And so creating a sustainable business model can afford you the opportunity to not just heal yourself, because all your stuff comes up when you get in the container, all of your insecurity, all those things. And that's why I'm there to hold that for you. But what is the vision that is being birthed in you right now? What is the gift? What are the gifts that you have right now in this season that are going to help create a new earth, a new dispensation? Because that's where we are. We're in the new earth right here and right now. And so everything that has been hidden is now in plain sight. And we're going to need people that are going to help us rewrite history and rewrite the legislation. Because if consciousness doesn't change, legislation will just it'll remain the same. It'll shift and it'll look different, but it'll stay the same. So we need people that are making those not just challenges, but demands for more just, more equity, and healing. Because many of the empaths that I work with are doing generational work. They're going 7 generations back to heal so that they can move 7 generations forward. The ideas of accessibility and generating generational wealth so that we have more access to right education. And I don't just mean scholastic education, institutional education, but having access to the earth and the remedies that lie there, that businesses work in tandem with community, that as you are creating a sustainable business, you can give to organizations or create or structure your business in such a way that you can bring others with you, because we have to lift as we climb. And my business model, a portion of my proceeds. So if you coach with me, a portion of my proceeds goes to the Power of Girlhood. And the Power of Girlhood is a leadership organization that I founded 10 years ago for girls between the ages of 8 and 18. And right now, baby, we're launching a podcast and we're launching a magazine. And so we're working with girls to create this inner voice project that is for girls by girls. They're producing their own podcast, coming up with original content. They're writing articles, taking on social justice, equity, inclusion, and taking on mental health and taking on human rights, and even their own reflections about the society that we live in. And they say that truth comes from the mouth of babes. And let me tell you, these babes are speaking truth. So you, as one individual, can have a ripple effect of influence and shaping and healing when you take that first step, that very first step of healing the self. Because the truth is, you are perfect, whole, healed, and complete. It's just the garbage and the noise out here that is saying otherwise of this culture. And empaths right now are being called to culture shift. The word tells us that it's a peculiar people, the strange, the different, the odd, the weird. These are the ones that make history, and these are the ones that make changes. So come on and make this change. So with every thought that you have, when you use your empathic gifts, when you can walk into an environment and be able to read the room. There are geomantic empaths who have a kinship and can feel seismic activity of the earth. They're plant empaths that know which type of medicines that certain plants carry. And so many empaths end up in spaces that I call emotional first responders, where they have their own practices as psychotherapists, as counselors, as coaches, as transformational leaders. Why? Because we need a transformation who go into organizations and shift the way the organization culture operates. Because we cannot have a continued rugged disregard of the feminine. That will not continue. And I don't just mean the feminine and those who have female identified bodies. We're also talking about men leaning into their feminine, because everyone has a womb of consciousness. And in that womb, seeds are planted. And when we talk about what we think, our thoughts become beliefs, and those beliefs become behaviors. So what are we believing today? And I'm inviting us to shift our awarenesses into what's possible. A world that works for all. A world that is just, a compassionate community where we can live and thrive together. But the only way to get there is to assess where the oppressor lives within, where the colonizer lives within, and challenge those punitive systems that exist. And we do that by where we invest our time, our talent, and our treasure. Those are the indicators of what we value. So we know Sister Audre Lorde said that the master's tools will never destroy the master's house. So let's use some new tools, some tools of imagination, some tools of transformation, some tools of love, some tools that we've never seen before up until this point. So the empath is waking us all up to the empathy. And the best definition I've heard for compassion is this. These are going to be the two pillars that the new earth is being built on: empathy and compassion. Compassion is the ability to recognize the suffering in another, and then the willingness to do something about it. And so when we're looking at all of the police brutality and what is happening, all over the planet, but particularly here in these United States, the system needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. Imagine a system where we have social workers that come in and respond to mental health crises, to where we have enough funding for our schools so classroom sizes decrease and there's access to technology, but actually learning is project based. So students are getting real world applications no matter what zip code they live in. Imagine that. And we actually tell the truth about, history and government. Imagine that. And that our students learn how to plant and grow sustainable food. recycling is part of the norm, and that we check in with each other on the social emotional level. Can you imagine that world? Please stand with me and imagine that world. So I say all that to say that the empath has an important role here. And so, with those gifts of deep intuition, of those gifts of vision, and of those gifts, um, there is so much that is possible for us to connect deeply with our ancestors, knowing that they're here championing us. We can make a better world. So, I just wanted to stop in and invite you into not just healing, but also into the power of imagination. Because everything that we see, even these systems, were a product of someone's imagination. So let's hold each other, also hold each other in love. Thank you so much for tuning in. DM me if you have an interest in joining me in the VIP Day experience, where we'll take a deep dive into your business and look at the systems and the foundation so that you are crystal clear about what your offerings are. Identify where your money leaks are so that your services are priced accordingly. And then we'll look at the ways in which you feel secure in your visibility and that you know exactly who it is that you are called to serve. Because when we serve everybody, we end up serving nobody. And we're all called to a particular person or cause. And so in the VIP day, we get really clear on that. And this idea of branding, that's a whole other story. But I move from the soul. What shows up naturally in your being? And what are those colors? And what do they communicate, even silently? So thank you so much for tuning into this live. It's been a pleasure. And DM me if you have more questions about what it would look like for us to work together one on one. Peace and blessings to all. Bye for now.